let me just set the scene. So you are, I'll share this map with you, Neil. Make sure that you can see it too. You've basically wintered in Woodmen Town for the whole of the winter. You've got various reasons of being there. I'll let you describe that to each other in a short while. It's springtime. The whole of the town is beginning to wake up a bit. Since you've been in Woodmen Town, you've noticed that you were provided with, I wouldn't say derelict, but a fairly rundown longhouse that was unoccupied. You spent a little bit of time early in the winter just making it weatherproof. Plenty of firewood around. You were able to keep it warm. You were fed and watered there pretty easily, but you were itching to get moving, dull, cold. And as the snow fell, there was not a lot else to do other than maybe play the odd game, join for some communal music or something with the other folk in Woodmen Town and get to know each other a little bit. So your timing for the campaign is set 5 years after the Battle of the Five Armies. So it's Third Era 2946. Today is the first of Reth. I think that's how you, maybe Rethi. And whereas the snows have been melting now for about the last week, you were hoping this morning that it was going to be a nice sunny day, even though it's a bit bleak and grey. It actually, the heavens opened as you opened the shutters on the longhouse, and rain is teeming down. So it's not quite as nice as you thought it would be. But it's a new day. The roads looking like they may be open soon, if not immediately. And you're very interested in discovering what King Bar's proclamation is all about, inviting strong-hearted individuals who are interested in helping rebuild that part of the world to travel to Dale towards the end of the year, equivalent to probably October, November timeframe. There's going to be a lot of celebrations, and that's what the proclamation is calling for. And you've been talking about this over the last couple of months in the winter as you've been holed up. So I'll let you introduce yourselves in a little bit more detail. I'm sure you've read some of your own backgrounds, but I'll leave it over to you to look forward to hearing some of your accents as your characters introduce themselves.
So, John, over the winter, have we actually met each other at all, or is this all kind of just new?
Yeah, so you were basically, as people holed up here, there was a number of travellers. You happened to be all put together in one of the small longhouses. So Woodman longhouses tend to be single-story constructions. Typically, animals would have slept one end, possibly, and then some separate, like living quarters and some sleeping quarters in it. Straw and rushing on the floor. You tend to basically congregate around a hearth in the longhouse in the evenings to keep warm. A lot of furs to keep warmer in bedding. But you were basically put into one of these longhouses together, and that's how you got to know each other. Your prior traveling companions were also distributed around a few others. And if you look around Woodmen Town, you'd notice that probably about 25-30% of the buildings there are uninhabited. So it's definitely reduced in size since they were all built.
So, so Amalfrida would have probably told the others her story would have been that she wanted to get to Dale, as the others have done, because of the promise of adventure, loot, fame, and so on. Tried the Old Forest Road, ran into difficulties, spiders, goblins, what have you, and then the snows came. So that's probably why she's stuck, I guess. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Monin's story has been that he travels on trading caravans, and the last one he was on was really badly beset by bad luck. Got stuck in places. The actual road was closed in places. There was a few fights, which caused people to have to stop and heal for a while. So he overran, and then just the winter came in too much and was stuck here. And has been complaining ever since about wanting to go north again. And has heard about the summons and heard about there's going to be a party, and he's getting itchy about that. The one thing I'll know about Monin is he is a bit of a sourpuss somewhere. He's convinced he's going to die. He's hoping it's going to be a glorious death, but knowing he says
That could be arranged.
but he says, knowing his luck, it's not going to be a glorious death. It'll be something like a cold or something. And so this weather, he's going on about like pissing down and all this kind of stuff. And you can tell he's itching to want to go north again.
Brother Hathus, I think, is the closest to Woodmen Town. You live literally probably 30 miles.
Yeah, my thinking on that is that I've heard that there's a party of adventurers that have been forced to overwinter and sort of accumulate at Woodmen Town. And I've hurried over the last day or two to get there to hopefully tag on to the end of to tag along with them for safety in numbers, because I will die horribly within a mile away from my fire and my armchair. I'm hoping to tag along with you lot up to Dale to join in the excitement that's going to be going on there and find out what's going on as well. So he will have hurried in and be relieved that you're there. You haven't left yet. He hasn't missed the boat or missed the bus, and be very pleased to try and ingratiate himself with you and to travel with you.
Sigmarr, why are you there?
Well, I just want to go back home. The last bunch who hired me, it didn't turn out too well for them. At least I got paid. Cross your fingers, you might do better than they did.
You've been drinking like sour mead and some homebrew beer from the woodlanders most of the winter, and just desperate to get back to civilization again, I think.
So, judging by Sigmar's backstory and Amalfrida's, we would probably have spent the winter together, and then brother, is it Hathus? Sorry, was it Hathus?
I say Hathus, but yeah, Hathus.
So Hathus has only sort of just joined us in the last couple of days.
Yeah, so we may well whenever John wants, but literally it could have been just this morning or last night. I've just got in. You haven't left yet. Good.
Of course, we haven't bloody left. It's raining.
It's a bit of rain.
It has been so. Literally within a generation, some of the old folks around Woodmen Town remember the winter of 2911, where probably about 25% of woodmen died. It was that savage. And so you would almost probably say overprepared. The amount of wood that they backed up and food stores, it seems that probably they must spend a lot of their summer and autumn stockpiling food and wood just for that eventuality. Woodmen Town itself, I'll just show you a quick image of it. You're not catching it at its best. It's got a wooden stockade around it. There's a couple of jetties out into the river. And over the last couple of days, you've noticed people are basically digging the ash out of their houses. They're clearing, sweeping stuff out. There's a lot of mud around. Snow melt's beginning to go. And you're quite pleased, even though the morning started with rain. After a late breakfast and some moping around, the sky clears up a bit, and by 11, 12 o'clock, it's grey, but it's not raining anymore. And it's almost feeling spring-like. So you meet on the grassy sward of the market green. Above the green on top is that central hill of Woodmen Town, which is one of the highest locations around. You can see over some of the western eaves and down the river quite a fair way from up there. And on the market green, there's the occasional merchant lays out their goods there. But it's mainly agricultural trade that takes place there from woodman to woodman. So it's quite commonly in Woodmen Town a bartering system. People barter pigs for goods or services, those kind of things. Although there is coin exchange there as well. But it's not the sort of place that has a typical set of stores or anything in it. It's done in a market setting a couple of times a week where that is. You can see people are down by the river. The river is very full. There's flood water obviously coming down from the northern mountains. A lot of the snow and ice is melting up there, and it's really swollen the river quite a lot. And there are some fishermen and fisherwomen mending nets on the jetties and near the jetties. There's some people maybe tarring coracles in readiness for the fishing season and those kind of things as well. So it's stopped raining at least. Monin stopped moaning a little bit, and you just gone out for the long.
John, we've all kind of met each other, and we know that we're all basically heading off towards Dale. Yes.
Yeah. So you've all kind of worked out. You haven't worked out a route or anything yet, but you've kind of quite keen to get out there.
Do we know of any trade caravans that are heading up that way?
So you might find that your folk, I'm not sure which direction you were heading, Monin, whether they were going towards Erebor again or going west. But if they were going, that would be the only real obvious one here. The rest of the folk were here were individual travellers predominantly. Neil, I know you said that Sigmarr had an unfortunate event, should we say. I'm not sure what that looked like, but there may still be some remnants of that party heading northeast as well.
No. It was a very unfortunate event.
No recognisable remnants of the party.
Yeah, strange. Only survivor.
Yes, and you got paid.
Yeah. So no, not really is the short answer, Steve. That is a heck of a journey. I mean, that would take months to get up there. Typical woodman wouldn't be traveling that far. You may find there are people traveling upriver to Woodland Hall, for example, and that tends to be done via boat, or there's fairly well-trodden tracks in the Western Eves going up to Woodland Hall, sorry. And there'll be the occasional maybe Bjorning heading back west, but no one you're aware of in town anyway is heading up to that world up in the Dale.
If we head up to Crofter's Vale, which one of I think it's Amalfrida knows,
Right.
is that like the M1 heading north? And hence, if there are caravans going through, we'll either see them ahead or behind us, or you may even catch word at Crofter's Vale where you know people to say any other parties travelling through, any other caravans either expected or just left, and we're heading pretty much in the right direction anyway. So would that be a good start, getting us out of the edge of Mirkwood and onto that main road, if indeed we think heading north that way is the way we want to go?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it would make sense. Crofter's Vale itself is small. It's basically a scattering of farmsteads rather than a definitive settlement. So people wouldn't go there for trading caravans. It's not big enough for that.
So it is really small. Okay.
Yeah, and I just emphasise I did some research on populations in Middle Earth. I was expecting it to be a bit like Europe in like the Middle Ages or something. It absolutely isn't. It's very, very sparsely populated. Basically, the only real population centres are highlighted, but within the towns on the map. The most populous area is the Shire, ironically. Yeah. Everywhere else is very, very sparse. So just bear that in mind. You're not going to be like travelling and going from village to village. You will sometimes find a place with maybe, some wooden fortifications around a farmstead and a barn you'll be able to sleep in, but that will be good accommodation for you.
It's about 1,000 years ago, there was a huge plague that swept through Middle Earth, and that pretty much did to Middle Earth's population what the Black Death did in 3 waves to Europe. So population Middle Earth probably halved 1,000 years ago and never really bounced back.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. Yeah, absolutely. And I tried to I may have overdone it slightly, but in the events tab on the Obsidian portal, I added a timeline in there of mainly the Third Age stuff that probably would be relatively well known. What probably wouldn't be known is the exact year, but the rough timescales for this would be fairly well known by most people. News travels very slowly around Middle Earth. I guess with any fantasy setting like this, with no magic or limited magic, there's no way of really communicating other than word of mouth. So the proclamation you probably heard in Erebor, Monin and Sigmarr, you heard this in Esgroth maybe 2 years ago, yet it's only been maybe just before the winter that it got this far west, that proclamation. So that would just give you a feel of people are fairly insular. They don't travel too much. And any people who travel are almost by definition adventurous. They got a sort of wanderlust and they're really interested in exploring.
Are those, can I just ask the players, so Amalfrida's, I'm playing with sort of a fairly, not naive, but somewhat naive 17-year-old, and looking at the portraits, am I right in thinking that Sigmarr and Hathus are somewhat older?
Absolutely, yes.
Right,
Hathus is probably mid-40s.
Okay, so, all right, so Amalfrida will be quite, and certainly with the dwarf, I think she'll be quite, and I'm not playing sort of an 8 charisma, but I think she's going to be quite reticent around people who are so much older than herself, and I think she's quite in awe of Monin. So she's quite keen to push on to Dale, but she's hesitant to suggest anything. I think she's waiting for you folks who are certainly in, I think it's Hathus' case, far more intelligent, and in Monin and Sigmar's just basically more worldly wise. But she'll basically is quite keen to get on the road and looks a bit fidgety, I think. So we going then?
Absolutely. We're just trying to figure out the route, really.
Yeah, well, that bloody forest road's nasty, I'm telling you. It's bloody nasty, that is.
Absolutely. Only a fool would go along the forest road.
Yes.
I mean, as you're talking, you're wandering around the town, and you can see some of the kids are being like kicked out of the houses to play. It's definitely the first day you've seen. It's warm enough that people want to be outside. It's probably about 15, 16 Celsius. Rain stopped. It's quite nice. There's a handful of children free from their chores. They're chasing a wooden ball around on the green with sticks. Kids are being told to stay within the stockade, warning them they'll be eaten by spiders if they stray outside. Give you a bit more description about Woodmen Town. You may want to talk to some of the folk around. And now you're outside. So the walls are built from a palisade of stout logs, which are sharpened at the top. And what's quite interesting, there are bunches of fragrant herbs hanging from the walls of that stockade in many places around the edge. And you've noticed that they've been refreshed throughout the winter with basically dried herbs, but people are even beginning to hang up some fresh ones now. It's coming slightly more spring-like. And Hathus, you are aware that that's really just to ward off evil influences. You don't know whether it works or not, but that's why people hang them up there.
Okay.
The palisade looks like...
I'll nod and smile at this sort of quaint custom that has no rigor in science, but hasn't been disproven either.
Palisades, a mixture of very, very ancient moss-covered sections and much more newly freshly cut and erected logs as well. So it looks like it's definitely seen better days, but it's not in complete disrepair. Almost all of the houses are rectangular longhouses with fairly deeply sloping shingled roofs that almost reach the ground. So they're pretty dark and quite smoky inside in the winter. It's really nice to be outside in some fresh air now. In terms of the structure around Woodmen Town, the Great Hall sits on top, which is where the Elder Council meets, and there's an inner palisade around that. So you don't know why it's really there. You can only assume it's there in case the whole town is overrun and they can pull back into almost like a bailey on top of the hill, even though it's probably as badly defended as the rest of it. And there are also, so Chris, with Brother Hathus that woodmen keep a lot of dogs and they're very loyal to them. You have your own dog.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of men have well-trained working dogs around the town. So around the north side of the hill, it's interesting. You weren't invited to keep your dog there because it wasn't part of the pack, but it seems that Woodmen Town, almost everyone with a dog keeps it overnight in almost like a very large compound and basically almost like a living quarters, but for the dogs. So that pack is very large in Woodmen Town. They look like they're well versed at playing with each other, those dogs. And even the dogs are excited. There's a lot of barking coming from north of town. People are going to pick up their dogs and dropping them back off there. And there's sounds of spring going on. People have chopped wood, sawing. There are things going on there that hadn't been happening all winter.
So we don't think there's no signs of any caravans or other traders sort of gearing up and getting ready to sort of strike out. So we probably are the only people, at a guess, heading out up to Dale or whatever from here.
Yeah, on the Market Green, which is where you are at the moment, there are a few people around. So only one of those looks like potentially a merchant. So there's someone who looks like a shepherd, who looks like he's selling dried meat and some fresher meat as well. There's an old lady sitting on the edge of the green on a carved footstool, and she's smoking and looking contemplatively over the green. There looks like there is a merchant there selling iron goods, so things like axe heads and iron stuff like that. Female merchant, and then there is someone basically looks like he spent the winter making charcoal. He's selling charcoal or trading charcoal on the green as well. And then there looks like someone who's got an awning over the top of him. Looks like he's trying to sell carvings or swap carvings. But those are about the only people around the green at the moment. You don't know any of them. You don't know probably more than about 10 people in Woodmen Town. People much themselves, and none of these people you know.
Okay, so Monin's gonna just sort of gather Amalfrida and Sigmarr, and Hathus, if Hathus is around. Right, Hathus. Right, you see the last there, Amalfrida. Now, I've sparred her a few times in the winter. She's not without skill. And Sigmarr, well, we all know he's a sneaky wee bastard, so he's not too bad with a knife in your place. But what are you bringing to the party?
Outdoors, not an awful lot. Indoors, I am very skilled in reading and writing and studying documents and reading books and discerning the hidden information and the secrets or the stories within them. Not just the surface level story, but the deeper story that fits into the weave of the world and actually tells us what may actually the author was trying to say, rather than the words he just used on the page. In a fight, I run away very fast.
Jesus. I mean, Malal's beard.
Well, you don't think I understood any of that?
what he's saying, lass, is that if the orc's coming, he's going to stab him with a pen.
I have stout staff, and he shows me his rather bland-looking staff that he carries with him as a sort of overgrown walking stick. I'm not a fighting sort.
I'm just wondering, are we going to have to carry you all the way, or will you pull your weight?
I'll try my best to pull my weight. I hope it's an even trade.
Well, if I need anything reading, I'll ask you.
Brilliant. There you go. I appear to be biting my tongue at that point from some witty rejoinder, which may not go down well with a dwarf.
Weather's brightening quite nicely outside now.
Right, I reckon we should probably clean the house that we've been using. Don't you? That'd be only nice before we get going.
It's a very good suggestion, actually. I think it's the proper, honourable, guestly thing to do, and it's fairly traditional to do that, so that would be expected and even frowned upon if we didn't.
Well, I think so. I just think my dad would be furious if we left the house and I hadn't cleaned my room. Right.
Mahal's beard, listen to you. You're going to be a slayer one day, Amalfrida, not a fucking cleaner.
My dad always said it was important to make your bed before you left home. I'm going to make my bed.
Mahal's beard.
We just think a few people could learn a lesson or two, that's all. I'm not saying anything else, but I just think a few people could learn a few lessons about being nice.
Right, how long? I'll teach you a wee lesson here. Hey, you! Wee shite, come here. Hey, wee boy, come here.
Little lad looks up and comes over quite slowly, looking at the heavily armoured dwarf shouting at him.
Oh, you wee shite.
Right, you see, wee bollocks, you see that there? You see my bed there? I'll give you a copper piece if you do it for me. Go and make a good job of it.
He looks at you and looks at you holding a copper piece and then runs off the other way, and his mum's on the edge of the green.
I've been approached by a dwarf.
A bit of a conversation.
Grooming, where I come from, that's called grooming. You can get arrested.
Where I come from, that's commerce.
But he comes running back in about 30 seconds with a big grin on his face, and he holds his hand out for the coin, and he says, I'm Tac, T-A-C. You're going to give me that shiny coin to go and clean your bed. Is that what you said?
Aye, that's right. Here.
There's nothing in it funny, is there?
I don't think so. I'll have a look and tell me, but here, take this coin. Clean that up there, will you? And if you need me, boys, I'll be down getting a wee ale. See you later.
I don't think it's right. There's a principle. I'm going to clean my room and I'm going to make my own bed.
Amalfrida, listen here, Tac. Are you happier than you were 5 minutes ago?
Tac nods his head.
The bloody money.
There you go. Look, I'm bringing happiness to this world, Amalfrida. Are you
You're
happy?
bloody lazy, you are.
Are you happy than you were 5 minutes ago? There's the lesson for you. Now I'm off to get an ale.
You're bloody lazy, you are.
So Tac spends literally a cursory maybe 25 to 30 seconds kicking some straw and stuff from your pallet from one end of it to the other, drags the bedding off and like leaves it half over the end of the bed, and then comes out of the house again and runs straight over to the woodcarver with his copper coin.
Amalfrida will shrug and just probably use a brush and just clean out the room that she's been using, or as much of the longhouse as she can.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have you've had a fire in that place for probably 4 or 5 months every day, going 20 hours a day.
Emptying the ashes as well, then.
Yeah, ashes are knee deep. It's a huge fireplace in these places because they know they've got long winters to contend with, and takes an hour or two to clear up. But you make a good job of it, and everyone's basically doing a bit of spring cleaning around town.
Yeah, definitely. Hathus is definitely happy to help, even if he's just arrived this morning. He thinks this poor little Amalfrida may be getting a bit bullied and ridiculed if she's not careful, so he'll definitely join in and help her a bit.
Cool. So Hathus, your dog, I'll basically treat it like a well-trained dog, but it is a dog, and so your control won't be absolute. You may need to make some animal checks for that.
Yeah, I don't plan to like send him off like some kind of imp familiar or anything like that. It's much more of a indoor companion that goes outdoors rather than just. He's not a battle dog.
Great question, Steve. I generally don't know. I need to look that up. So Steve just asked a question around the exchange rates for gold, silver, and copper. Stuart, do you know for the campaign you run?
It's 20 to 12. It's 20 silver to a gold, and I think it's 12 copper to a silver, isn't it?
That's right. But probably where we are, actually, if you really wanted to make the game difficult and sort of more Tolkien-esque, there's probably be very little coinage being exchanged. It was sort of barter, and that medieval thing called hack silver was probably used a lot. But yeah, lots and lots of silver, lots and lots of copper coins, and some silver, and probably very little gold. Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So you're right. That is the exchange. And you noticed that Tack, when he went over to the woodcarver took the coin, bit it, handed it back. So wasn't that useful to the boy, but he's got a shiny coin and never had one of those. You can see the boy run off to his friends again, the other side of the green, all playing with like wooden balls and things, and they all cram around it as if he's like some sort of marauding hero looking at this shiny coin that none of them have ever seen before.
Yeah, wait till I see that bed though.
Have that straight back off him. Yeah. Do you want to talk to anyone around the green? Anyone else?
You said there was a lady, an old woman smoking a pipe. Does she look like an elder member of this community, or does she look like she doesn't fit in? So is she a different race, or dressed differently, or is she just an old woman smoking a pipe outside a house?
Yeah, no, great question. So I'll go through the list again. So the shepherd's a woodman.
Yep.
The old lady, she's a woman. The merchant is a dwarf from Mountain Hall. Sorry, that's crap. The merchant's a woman as well. Apologise for that. Is there anyone not a woman? No, everyone's a woman. So these people are looking like they're used to the town, been here for a while.
So there's no outsiders, for example.
No, So Monin stands out pretty well. Sigmarr keeps himself to himself, kind of, I would say, lurks in the shadows, but he's not making it obvious. Monin stands out. He's armored. He didn't really interact too much with people. He's a bit grumpy and dour. The children are a bit scared of him. He's not done any harm to anyone in the community, so they're more than tolerant of him, but they're, I guess, quite neutrally disposed. Yeah. But for Hathus and for Amalfrida, people have been pretty friendly to you, been around.
And you say the merchant who was selling the iron goods is also a woodman. Yeah,
so he's also a woodman. There's a few people going up there looking like they're exchanging some things or having a discussion, handshakes are made and like an axe exchanged. But he's not exactly got a roaring trade, should we say? Sorry, she's not got a roaring trade.
And knowing what I do of woodmen, just because I am a woodman, do I think, of course, they're all women because the men are out doing more physical labour, or is it just random chance they're all women?
Good point.
Combination of both. You wouldn't say that this is a highly female popular town at all. It's so unlike, I guess, modern society or society of 50 years ago. Men and women share the duties, and Amalfrida knows that just as well as anyone. Really, the expectation of her father and her people in her where she grew up was that she would do exactly the same tasks that the guys would, and so that's probably more reality. They are very woke in Middle Earth in 2019.
Yeah. Okay, so after Amalfrida is cleaned out the longhouse as best she can, Monin's obviously gone off to get a drink. I think she'll go out into the town, begin to air out her own travel gear.
She's working through the green. The merchant, the woman selling iron axe heads and stuff, shouts over, "Thank you, miss." She obviously recognised you as a Bjorning, and always good to have Bjornings here, keeping us travellers safe. And nods and a nod of thanks to you as you go.
Okay, I'll smile and then wander over and have a look and see what she's got for sale. Just if she's got anything that's, I don't know, better than what I've got. I'm thinking about some sort of heavy spear or something like that, or a great spear.
So it's really, so she doesn't have any of the wooden components for things, but she does have axe heads. Are the only real. So some of those are, I would say, moderate grade steel, not great, not iron either. Probably similar to what you have. So most of that would be, you can tell they're kind of wood chopping axes, hand axe.
Yeah.
Hathus will drift over as well, and when he catches her eye, the woman trader, he'll say, "You describe yourself as a traveller. Does that mean you are planning to travel soon? If so, might we be travelling in the same direction?"
"Hello, sir. Good, sir. I will be travelling probably in the next 5-7 days. Heading back west. Back to Mountain Hall, actually. Running a little low on stock here, but we'll be back this way probably in the next couple of months if there's anything I could ask from them to commission for you."
And have you arrived here in Woodmen Town recently? So have you news of what might be going on outside the stockade? I'm assuming that travellers trade knowledge about, trouble on the roads or things they've seen recently, just as almost as a matter of course.
She laughs a bit and says, "No, like you fine folk, I was stranded here over the winter, so I've been around the other side of the hill, living there with a couple of other folk, but be quite pleased to get back on the road west. So, no, I've been here almost as long as you, I should think."
Okay.
Okay, I'll look across at Brother Hathus. So, do you reckon we're going to be travelling with her then?
I think if she's travelling west I don't think she's going to go much of the distance that we are at all.
Oh, right.
So, no, I don't think we're going to have that honour.
Oh, okay. I just thought it was west, that's all. I must confess, I don't really know where I'm heading. I know it's west and there's a big mountain, but I'm afraid I was hoping to follow the farthest road. But that's a bit of a bugger, really. All them spiders and everything.
That forest road is supposed to be treacherous, I think.
It were. Oh, well. And she shrugs.
Yeah. Damn, we haven't found someone to travel with yet.
You probably know this, Hathus, that the old forest road used to be called Menin Naugrim, which in Elvish meant the dwarf road. It used to be, we're talking probably, an era ago almost like a wonder of the world. It ran for a couple of 100 miles across the middle of Mirkwood, which wasn't called Mirkwood then, but it was almost a dividing line to the south. The road was at least 10 feet wide and fully paved the whole distance. Now, not like that at all. And you rarely even travel far into the western eaves. You've lived this area your whole life. Living near Roscabel, you feel slightly safer than most living around here, but there are spiders and worse living in Mirkwood, and you'd definitely be aware of that.
Yeah. No,
As would you actually, Amalfrida. I mean, despite living away, you're western Mirkwood, kind of along that the old forest road outside the old ford there, going west and east from there. You travel up and down those probably quite frequently. That's fairly safe and that's fairly well travelled. But basically, as you get into the forest, no one goes in there. Seen as too dangerous.
Monin comes out of the ale house, sort of shouting back, "Well, she does have a face like a donkey's arse," and then walks up with an ale in hand.
We need to get our friend out of here soon. I think he's going stir crazy.
Yeah, so the people do socialise. Tends to be gaming and singing and those riddle telling and things like that around Woodmen Town, and you've enjoyed company. So in terms of taverns, there isn't such thing as a tavern in Woodmen Town, but there's a number of men and women in the town who brew beer and also brew mead. And so you've got a bit of a reputation of an entertaining customer who gets very maudlin as he drinks, mainly because they don't see many dwarves and they like hearing you speak, like hearing some dwarvish tales of what it must be like living under the mountains and things. And you're definitely older than most of the grandparents around here and would be full of good stories. So you've got the odd free ale over the winter in return for stories and tales, and you're probably one of the four that's been best known by the people of Woodmen Town.
Okay, so he'll sort of come stomping up towards Amalfrida and Hathus and spot the ironworks, and he'll cast his appraising smith eye over it and try and rate how good it is.
Tourist shite, yeah.
Yeah, it's it would not pass muster for a junior smith from your homeland. That's for sure.
Mahal's tears, you're selling this shite. This is typical Monin bollocks. Get yourselves up there, Abor. We'll give you proper tools up there. Oh my God, did you find this in a ditch somewhere?
The woman goes and shakes her head a little bit, and then looks over at you and looks at the the wealth just in steel and iron that you're carrying on your body dwarfs what she's got on the table by probably a factor of 10. And so she kind of covers it up and then gets up and shuffles off the green the other direction.
Mahal, everybody's so touchy today. Right, come on, you lot. I'm getting bored here. We need to head off north. I'm sure there's another traders coming up north. There's four of us. Let's make an adventure together. Maybe this will be the time I die today. Hey, Hathus.
Mm-hmm.
If I die and you survive, can you tell my story?
Can I tell your story? I shall write it in any language I can.
Well, one that people can read.
Okay, that narrows it down a few.
Amalfrida looks at Monin and says, "So, are we heading off just the four of us then?"
I don't see why not. You know, there's nobody else around here, but I don't want to miss them at party up there. I'm up in Dale.
Right then, let's go.
I think
Amalfrida looks quite excited.
The only question really is, where are we going to go? With some questions 1, 2, and 3 of what route are we taking, where are we heading for first, and what's the weather going to do?
Well, I'd just say this: if we could go to Crafter's Vale, I've got like a week's provisions. If we go up to Crafter's Vale, restock, head a bit further north, maybe get there's a few farmsteads along that river up there. We could get some more provisions up there, and then, well, maybe I head up.
Well, halfway there.
And then, well, normally what we do, we go up to the just the Vales of Gundabad, and then head east across there to well, it's not a nice place. There's quite a few elves there, but at least they're not orcs. But they're just marginally better than orcs.
My dad says the goblins up in the Vales of Gundabad are a bit active sometimes, but no, I think you might be right.
Sorry, dog's gone ballistic. Dog walking past his house. He's protecting me.
I
It's a word.
reckon Sigmarr should keep that dog of his quiet too.
It's not Sigmarr. It's Hathus
No,
who's
it's
got a
Hathus.
dog.
Hathus got the
Yeah.
dog.
Hathus, that bloody dog of yours is going to get us killed.
No, he's not.
Shush.
Everyone's got dogs here. You stand up by not having one.
That
Kibble,
bloody dog of
be
Hathus
quiet.
is going to get himself killed in a minute if he doesn't shut up.
Tibbles, be quiet.
His name's Huon.
Who what?
Huon. It's a legendary dog. You should have heard of that one, surely. killed
No,
the-
should I?
Oh, he killed the werewolf.
Oh. No, we've not heard that one.
Ah,
I had a dog
I must-
once. It died.
yes.
Wait, did it not make its own bed?
No, we ran out of provisions.
So, you were standing close to the old woodcarver, shaggy-haired, fairly rotund chap. Got a pattern blanket on his table. He's carving talismans by the looks of things, and he comes up to you and politely sort of grabs his forelock and says, "Can't help but overhearing that you ladies and gentlemen might be planning a long travel. So, would you like to buy a lucky talisman for your journey? Keep you safe, they will. Go through the middle of Mirkwood with these and be absolutely safe.
A talisman? Against what?
Oh, danger. They really help you against danger."
Right.
In my knowledge of traditions, local traditions, John, being a woodman, do I think this is absolutely common, laughable stuff? Do I think it's deeply embedded in their culture, or just is this man just a chancer?
Give me a law check, Tower.
Whee! Done.
Now, so you know that woodmen, so you're aware of the herbs that are hanging around the outside.
Yeah, yeah.
They, as a culture, completely believe in these kind of things. So what in modern world might be seen as just superstition, they firmly believe in. So he's not trying to pull the wool over your eyes. He absolutely believes that these talismans have properties to help keep you safe. He may have exaggerated. You think a little bit about being able to go straight through the middle of Mirkwood with this, no problem. But he does provide these, and you've seen a couple of people trade other items for dozen eggs and stuff for these talismans since you've been standing around.
Okay, so it's not a complete snake oil in terms of alien to woodman. Even if we don't believe it, it's common enough, and it's a bit like
Yeah.
tickies, etc. in New Zealand, I guess. Is it tiki?
Yeah, that kind of thing. So I'm barreled. If you want one, you know where to find me, and I wouldn't travel far away from here without one. You said you're going all the way to Dale. It's up near the big mountain, isn't it? Dangerous route up there. Only the brave merchants with lots of guards normally go that far, from my knowledge.
Well, yes. Amalfrida doesn't really know what else to say.
Monin's just shaking his head and muttering.
I'm going to have a quick glance around. Is Sigmarr even within 400 meters of us, or has he sneaked off to do his own thing, or is he sitting quietly, or
Where's Sigmarr at the moment?
Sitting down, picking his nails.
singing of gold?
So Amalfrida glances at the others, and they don't show any interest in these charms. Neither will she, but she's still quite curious. Go on then, show me one of these there lucky charms. Let me have a look.
Oh, you look like you've got a good eye, miss. And he takes out, actually, it's quite a well-carved talisman, quite small, probably about 3 inches in diameter. And it's a stylized wolf's head, front on, quite flat. It actually looks quite well made. This will keep you safe.
Was it made of?
It's some hardwood, so it's not going to, and it's quite well oiled. It's oiled to a kind of a deep brown sheen.
So you reckon I wear this and I'll be safe in the woods, do you? Sorry, do we?
Anyone trying to find their way in the wilderness with this on will find it a lot easier. I wouldn't necessarily, and he looks over the hills to the woods to the east. I wouldn't necessarily be venturing into Mirkwood myself, regardless of how many of my talismans I have. But if you're traveling, this will keep you as safe as anything.
So these talismans have been tested, have they? Because you ain't gone into the woods with one yourself.
I've never been killed with wearing one.
Oh, right. I feel Amalfrida you should make an intelligence roll at this point.
Yeah, give me a.
No, I wish you had to say that.
Actually, give me an insight check in the tower.
Really? Oh, bugger. We'll have 15 of them.
Oh, buy the lot. Yeah. Managed by. So you Amalfrida thinks actually can't do me any harm, and he's not saying they're going to save my life if we're attacked by orcs, but might be something in it.
Can't hurt. How much do you want?
Well, normally I got a family, you see, so I'd be trading for food this time of year, but you got any food left?
Me? No, I need it. I've got a long journey, or weren't you listening?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you have, madam. Well, if you're going all the way up to Dale, you ain't going to have enough food for that, but what else have you got on you?
I've got folks on the way. Well, look, I've got this, and I'll show me necklace of orc teeth. Now, this is a talisman.
Let me have a look at that.
Look at those teeth. Each one of them has come from an orc chieftain. Now, they'll protect thee.
You want to swap it? He looks incredulous.
I might.
I think that necklace is worth a lot more than just one of your talisman. Is it Barrack? Did he say Barrack or Balak? Barrack.
Barald. B-A-R-A-L-D.
Barald.
John, what do I think as regards the relative worth of my necklace of teeth and his magic trinket?
Just for the uniqueness, it's almost priceless heirloom quality. That's probably a number of generations your family have contributed to pulling.
It's that valuable. It's a necklace of orc teeth, and I just thought it was a necklace of orc. We see a lot of those in the fens after a rugby match. Right, get your bloody hands off my priceless heirloom. I don't know what I was thinking. And I'll slap him on the hand.
He says, maybe something like a blanket or something. Have you got anything that will be of use to me?
Are you bloody mad? It's wet and cold outside. No, you can't have my blanket. I'll come back when I've got something worth trading.
You do that, madam.
Right. Well, Amalfrida is not a trader. She looks somewhat crestfallen and goes, I quite like that as well.
Do you have any honey cakes you might bake, madam?
Oh, shit, man.
Oh, dare ask me again. Go on, ask me again. You can walk with no family jewels. Go on, ask me.
Oh, sorry. No, didn't mean to cause offence there. I didn't know you weren't a baker.
Just because I'm a Bjorn doesn't mean I make bloody cakes. It's got more to do with my time than making bloody cakes.
There you are, madam. I'm sorry.
You bloody will be. You asked me for bloody honey cakes today. Hard to eat those with no fucking teeth.
Just ask the orcs.
That's right. Where do you think I have the orcs' teeth from? Okay.
Right, I don't think we're getting anywhere here. I think we should hit the road soon.
Please do, otherwise I'll fail to purchase more equipment.
It wasn't equipment. So if we strike out to Crofter's Vale, let's get a sense of scale on this map. Okay, it's
quite a way, isn't it? It's about...
if he goes due west and then north, sort of 160 miles.
Yeah, okay. So if we're, looking at 20 miles a day on foot, something like that? At best?
Yep.
On a road?
About 8 days.
Spring is going to be quite tough, isn't it, as well? So we probably won't hit 20 miles a day.
Yeah, your travel is fairly tricky, but you probably could do that. I'll just step out of role-playing character for the time being, just to give you a bit of an insight there. And as you guys are starting seriously to talk about the trip, you notice that Monin, despite all his moaning, bloody waste of time, and seemed to be in a bit of deep conversation with Barrel, and comes away with the closest you've seen in the last month to a smile on his face after speaking with him. To plan a journey, so journeys are quite an important part of Middle Earth. I just step out of this and get into the kind of rule system again. So they've actually expanded on rules here. It's not going to take you a long time to travel, but there are rules to do it. So I'm just going to kind of go through that with you now. So some of this most of this is in the player's guide as well. You can read it in a bit more detail, but typically it kind of works this way. So you assign tasks and plan the route. So there are various tasks for traveling, and they're in the player's handbook. Basically, there are 4 main tasks there. For example, scout or guide, those kind of things, and they, depending on who is allocated which role, that basically becomes your main role day to day as you're traveling. We won't role play any of that through, but if something crops up, that you go to say the scout to handle a scout type task. I would then tell you, depending on the route you choose and the distance, how perilous that route is, and it gets a kind of rating. The guide, the person that's assigned that task, then makes what's called an embarkation roll. So that's modified by your proficiency plus half your wisdom bonus, and then you subtract the peril rating. So basically, the more perilous, if you're traveling through the middle of Mordor in the winter, that's a lot more perilous than in the middle of summer going up the Anduin Vales, for example. I then kind of relay the results to that and hint at it. There could be one or more events on the journey, potentially, depending on quality of that role and how good your guide is. Then if there are any events, we play through that. Then depending on how that travel went, at the end there is an arrival roll. So at your destination, if you arrive there, depending how well your journey went, you could be anything from feeling really uplifted and motivated to completely knackered and exhausted and not being fed properly for the last few weeks. So that just gives you an oversight to it. So the first stage of that is for you really to assign tasks to that journey. So who wants to do kind of what task, and then give me an idea on the route you're taking, and then I'll let you know what that embarkation role looks like. Now, there are things that can influence embarkation roles. I'll give you that as an idea. So depending on the quality of your preparation, maybe who you talk to, you could get positive or negative modifiers to that role. Most of it's based on your skill, though, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you want, I'll just give you an idea on the 4 main tasks for traveling. So number 1 is the guide. They're in charge of all decisions concerning the route, rest, and supply. And essentially,
based characters.
Essentially the guides rely on wisdom and survival proficiency. So that's their main skill that they'll be using to do the guiding. The next, the scout. They're in charge really of setting up and finding camp, opening any new trails. If you get lost, for example, those kind of things, or if you're going completely into the wilderness. And they tend to rely on both stealth and investigation. Next role that's important is the hunter. They're basically in charge of finding food. So any journey above probably 2-3 days, you're unlikely to be able to carry enough food for it. So you wouldn't have ever heard of anything like, well, actually, not strictly true. Amalfrida probably has heard of preserved food. The only preserved food available outside of that setting, or maybe to the dwarves, would be jerky, that kind of thing. So most of it goes off fairly rapidly. So you can only carry 3 or 4 days worth. And then from that point on, you're relying on your success with survival checks to hunt in the wilderness. And the final one is the lookout. So that's the person in charge of keeping watch. And they're really relying most on deception. So keeping an eye to the horizon and the skies. Things.
Okay.
Sorry,
am I right?
So what was the hunter? What's the so scout? Sorry, guide was wisdom, scout was stealth, investigation. What was hunter?
Hunter is survival again as well. I'll paste these in.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Carriage returns didn't come out. Sorry about that. So read the one afterwards. The guide is correct, but then a third.
Yes, scout, hunter, and lookout are in there. Yeah, okay.
But we can we double up on roles, John? Or do you need individuals for each one of those? I'm trying to remember.
You can do. So if, for example, you can have one person doing all, you'll get penalties for doing that,
That's
but basically
right.
the others aren't doing much.
Yeah.
It's normally best to try and allocate them out. And you're actually fortunate you've got a 4-person party. Sometimes you have to double up.
Right. So I have some ability in survival and some, and I'm fairly observant, but I wouldn't say I'm particularly good. I mean, I can probably get us to Crofter's Vale, but anything beyond that could be awkward.
Hathus is good at wisdom and good at survival, and he's good at maps and knows routes and stuff like that. So guide would work for Hathus more than probably the others.
Okay.
And I think that Monin's probably done this route a few times, so he probably would have a bit of sort of knowledge of the route. But his wisdom's, well, you can see on the party track, his wisdom's 14. I don't know if he's got survival. I'll check. It's not a proficiency, but he's got, a +2 in it.
Okay, so how about Amalfrida will be quite happy to act as hunter. Sounds like that's a role that she could do. She's obviously probably not going to be as good as some of the others as a guide or scout.
Yep.
So Amalfrida will volunteer to try and find food if we need.
Yeah, my investigation, or Monin's investigation, isn't very good. So it's probably not the best to be a scout by the looks of it.
Sigmarr might. I'm not sure Sigmarr capabilities are maybe the most suited.
Guessing Sigmarr. And then lookout. I know there's a couple of that have really good eyesight at night. Monin, for example. You could certainly do lookout.
Yeah, I think his reception is just as good as my wisdom. So yeah, I don't mind doing the lookout.
You've also got better vision at night as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so maybe if I slept first of all, and then as soon as it gets dark, try and keep that watch.
Hathus, do you want to act as guide then?
I'm happy to.
Monin then goes as lookout.
That would naturally leave scout for Sigmarr, would it?
Sigmarr, are you happy to act as scout?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, I think we've got all 4 roles fitted then.
Okay, and so you've got the map now with you, a couple of copies of that on the background. But so give me a rough description of where your overall route you're planning is from where you are.
I would guess it is west, out of Woodmen Town, through the gap in the trees. It may just be, assuming that's a gap in the trees, through that gap in the trees, out until we catch sight of the river, and then just follow the river north at a reasonable distance. If it's marshy, we'll keep away from the river a bit. If it's a good, whatever the word is, guide, then we'll follow it a bit closer.
Okay.
And bearing in mind, I'm from Traitor's Hill, so this is pretty much home turf for me.
Yeah, you'll be very, very secure knowing this. Probably the East Annuin Vales, maybe as far up as the Old Forest Road goes. You know that area pretty well.
By which time Amalfrida and Monin will be well at home on the route anyway, because they've done it a few times. Yeah, so everyone should be pretty comfortable.
And you as well, Amalfrida, you know that part of the river, travel up and down it quite a lot. Typically actually go quite a bit further north of the road as well. So you'll be normally actually you spend probably equal amount of time west and east of the river up there, but you know that area north of the road fairly well.
Okay, up till we get to sort of the west Upper Vales and the east Upper Vales.
Yep.
As she goes.
So Chris, you mentioned that it looks like there's a gap in the trees. That's basically where a lot of the wood is harvested from for building and for burning in Woodmen Town. So quite probably over a lot of years. It's I wouldn't say they're cutting down big trees, but they're thinning it out, and any fallen trees they're dragging out of there, so it's more open than other parts of the wood. You've never been into Mirkwood, and you have been strongly recommended not to go east of the river, the Dusty River. But you're aware that you wouldn't want to go in there. You may never come out. Almost certainly wouldn't ever come out.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm pretty clear on that. And then your plan would be to go across the Grey Mountain Narrows, kind of cutting east just above the East Upper Vales area, going around the top of the wood, and then walking down through the Dalelands after that.
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if we were going to break it up into chunks and like head to Crofters Vale and then stop that to do that as a journey, or whether we're doing the whole thing as a journey. I don't know how it works and how much we have to decide now and how much we can decide on the fly.
No, just that's fine. I based on that, I will now allocate a
peril rating.
A peril rating for you and let you know. Okay.
If only the commute to work worked like this. And you calculate a peril rating on a Sunday evening and phone up and say, I'm sorry, the peril rating is too high, headmaster. I can't possibly come into work.
Yep, that'd be perfect. So the other option is you are debating this. So you're basically sitting down having a bite to eat. It's middle of the day now. The old lady that you saw smoking is also eating near you. She's chewing on look more sucking than chewing. She's got many of her teeth left, but she's sucking on a piece of a dried mutton that the meat shepherd was selling, the meat seller, and comes up and says, "So you planning a journey then, my lovers?"
That's my mother. Where have you been, Ma?
Sorry, I've got a generic, like anything between Norfolk, Midlands, and West Country accent I can only pull out. I can't different.
So's mine. That's right, we are.
All right.
I used to do quite a bit of travel up and down Western Mirkwood in my youth. You know, bit of a hunter actually.
Ah.
So you know the route then, do we? Up round the Grey Mountain Narrows, we reckon.
That's a long way up. Definitely right going up the Vales, though. You don't want to be in the woods. But in my youth, I used to go down the old elf path quite happily. I've been well down that route, actually. That's probably not as dangerous, especially since that big battle than it used to be.
Have you travelled that road recently, Mother?
I don't get much, and she slightly coughs. I don't get much off me stool these days. Gone on my hunting days. And she looks at it. She's got some like arthritic old fingers gripping a pipe, and she looks ruefully at them, and then looks back at you.
So you've not travelled that road for some years, then, Ma?
No, but I used to do it in my youth. So, in fact, even after that terrible snows back in 50 years ago, quite a lot after that, I was up and down the elf path, and it's quite widely dispersed out there. If it's easy to follow, you can keep on it. That may save you. That could save you 10 days, maybe travel going that route. But up to you. But I think you're doing the right thing, going up and then around the top that way. Definitely don't go to that Mirkwood. Don't go through that. But you'll be safe down the elf path, I think.
Oh, right. Hathus, what do you reckon?
We could do with speaking to someone who's got more recent experience. A lot can change in 5-10 years, especially in the Elven Kingdom.
She takes a deep suck on her pipe and looks steadily in the eyes and says, "So you're not trusting my knowledge of Mirkwood?"
No, we do, Ma. It's just that, do you know anybody who's travelled that road recently? Like in the last week?
No one will be up there after the winters, but
you know what I mean. Before the winter set in, is anybody that? It'd be nice if we knew somebody who travelled it more recently than you. That's all. That's all we're saying.
Understood.
Sigmarr and Monin's, any of those trading caravans they've been on, did they ever take the elf road or elf path? Sorry.
I've just seen Sigmar's gone for a toilet break. I'll ask him. So she, she says I used to be a bit of a tracker when I was younger, and even up till maybe 15, 20 years ago, I was still doing quite a lot of travel up there. I know that bit up and down the Western Eves here really well. To be honest, you don't need to go even that close to the Anduin. You could stay quite near the Western Eves. Don't go in them. but going up the edge of the wood, that may save you a day or two going further west and then cutting back again. But basically, I think your route would be fine up through the Grey Mountain Narrows, but also Elf Path you may want to consider. Maybe look at it when you get up near that area.
Absolutely.
I haven't been up there in maybe 20, 30 years myself, but it wasn't as bad as people made out.
We shall definitely bear that in mind. Thank you. I didn't catch your name.
Oh, sorry, good sir. I'm
Haver.
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 Heva.
Thank you very much, Haver.
Yeah, most of what I'm doing is a bit of hunting, and then as I got a bit old for that, I used to lead some of the old men and women out there in logging parties in the autumn when we used to go and get the wood in for the winter, and I used to know good spots for deadwood where the wind used to come whistling around the hills, and a lot of trees used to fall down. Didn't cut much new wood down. Wood didn't like that, but I knew where to find good burning wood.
So, do we think the Elf Path is doable then?
Well,
So, Amalfrida will look at Hathus again and go, do you reckon it's worth seeing if anybody in here has ever travelled that Elf Path recently?
Just thinking the same thing.
I mean,
Thinking the
It
same
would
thing.
save some time, wouldn't it? And I don't like... Yeah.
well, Monin last travelled
then-
from Dale. Which direction John did his caravan take?
It was a merchant caravan you were with, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have come through the Grey Mountain Narrows. Mainly as a dwarf, for about a third of your journey, you can see the mountains to your north, and you find that quite reassuring.
Okay, so Monin will say that. Last time we went, we kept the way we were talking about going. Never went the Elf Path, and maybe because we're merchants, but I don't know. I mean, her knowledge is about as recent as when Soren was still alive.
Sigmarr, when you came from Dale, which route did you take? Most merchants would take the Grey Mountain Narrows route around the top of the Mirkwood and then coming south, but you just discovered that there's an old guide or an old veteran traveller who said maybe the Elf Path wouldn't be that bad an idea. Now, you could have taken the Elf Path and all died a horrible death on it. I'm not sure. Did you come that route or did you go a different route?
We came down the Old Forest Road.
Oh, jeepers.
Direct route.
No wonder they all perished. Were you the guide on that party, Sigmarr?
I was the scout.
Oh, good.
You'd probably think, so you've been piecing this together over the winter, Neil, that you lost your group over a 2-night period in the middle, pretty much you would estimate in the middle of the woods. You came out of the woods on your own, completely ragged and exhausted after, you don't know, it could have been months, because the road was, well, you were lost and thrown around. You couldn't tell direction easily. And you know that you were very, very lucky to come out of there alive. And whoever was leading that party
Was an idiot.
And won't be leading another one yet.
We'd have been all right if it wasn't for him. Couldn't keep their heads down that long.
So are you recommending you go back up the Old Forest Path?
So that's off the list.
If you can stay hidden, get your head down, it might work. So no.
You did, and if you came that route, you had run-ins multiple with spiders. Your ability to evade them is probably the only thing that saved your life. No one else had that skill in the group you were traveling with, but there were numerous and still give you nightmares.
I don't trust the Elf Path unless I can find someone who's walked it in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Not somebody who walked it 20 years ago. An awful lot. The world has changed in 20 years. Thorin and company went along it, 5 years ago, and they had a torrid time, mainly from the elves.
Quick though.
Sorry?
Quick though. What's the worst that could happen?
Captured by elves.
So Sigmarr, you're aware that there are travellers from Dale that use the Elf Path. You thought it'd be faster going down the river, and you had basically a fairly cheap access on a barge going down the running river, which is probably the reason you took the Old Forest Road. Your leader was cutting corners, despite advice you're receiving in Dale, that probably isn't a wise course. But there are people travelling out of out of Esgaroth who would go pretty much through the long marshes just north of the river there, and then go down the elf path. So it does definitely happen.
It should be fine.
We've got good 200 miles, 150 miles along the Anduin. You'd think with a chance we'll meet people either coming. Actually, no, they won't have a chance to get out the elf path, will they? We might meet someone. I'm just thinking we could do with finding someone who actually has travelled that path. And I don't think we'll find them in Woodmen Town.
No, you asked around. There's no one else who would travel that far north. Most people don't go within more than a couple of days' travel from Woodmen Town.
We don't need to decide that until we get to
the junction.
At least Crofter's Vale.
Yeah.
Decide later.
Yeah, agreed.
That's given me an idea. I need to share images with you. That's Yorkshire Dales, by the way. It's incredibly pretty, isn't it? But I need to share individual images. That's fine. I can then share everything for you when you ask.
That looks bloody pretty until you've got to run up those bloody hills after your sheep. Not bloody pretty then, is it?
That's why you earn the big bucks and have got the constitution you have at Amalfrida.
That's why you have a good dog.
Bloody tourists. Run up those hills and make me some cakes. Bloody ha.